Well, good morning, good evening, good night. Does not matter when you are joining us. We're just glad that you are joining us. And so, welcome to another episode of First Light. It continues to get brighter and brighter every day, which I don't want to be a spoiler alert at all, but in about a month and a bit, that will start changing. But anyways, that's just something called nature. But I am glad that you're joining with us right now. As always, I always encourage you to just say hi in the comment section. That lets us know that you are with us and that you're joining with us. And if you're not from the Chilliwack area, we always love to hear where you're from as well. We're so glad that we have people from different places joining us. And so we want to welcome you to this as we are in this middle of a series in a middle of a series kind of thing. We're going through this year, taking 2022 and just walking through this idea about our vision, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But oh, well, look at that. Okay, we've got good morning, Richard, and we've got Rosanna Di Francesco. Aha! Yes, everyone say hi to Rosanna. She's our newest member in our Church Online group. She's been following us on our services in this, and Rosanna and Sabatino. Oh my goodness, you can't even say their names without it being like just look at this. We got Chrissy in Montreal. Oh, Montreal. Rosanna and Chrissy, you guys got to get talking. Rosanna's from Montreal as well, grew up there. But Rosanna's like, she's the Italian, right? She's the Italian, Sabatino. We love them. They're friends of ours and part of our family. And I just want to say this. It's probably taken me all of this time to be able to say this because I'm like 3 provinces away from Rosanna and Sabatino. But I love them to death. They're just like salty earth people, fantastic. If you actually, I should almost show you this here. I've got my coffee mug of the day, and so this is here. My coffee mug of the day is my Cubita coffee mug, and yes, it's pretty small, but I want to let you know this is actually a big cup of coffee. Rosanna and Sabatino have gone with me to Cuba, and so there's a saying that I would say. They would ask me if I want to have coffee, and I'd always say siempre café, which means always coffee. I don't know a lot of Spanish, but I know what gets me around. Donde está el baño, which means where's the washroom, and siempre café, which means always coffee. So that is pretty much how far it goes. But I just love having them with us. And the thing, yes, I was going to say is that Sabatino, I think he's a Don. I think he is like one of those Italian Dons. I don't want to say much about it, but like it's just like he's a very quiet man. But you talk to him, and he had this landscaping company. I really think, honestly, now that I'm far enough away, I think he had a landscaping company because that's where they buried the bodies. That's kind of what I think happened with the fact there. Because maybe I'm wrong, but I'd say, hey, where's Frankie? And he goes, oh, he moved down under. I said, oh, like Australia? He's like, no, just down under. And you just don't ask any other questions. So anyways, but great having you and with everybody else joining us. And not the size of the cup, but the quality of the coffee matters. True, Chrissy. Very, very true. And the coffee I've got in here, I've got some fantastic roast coffee in here. But yes, and I'll tell you, the coffee they make in Cuba, it's prized there because like Cuba, they get like $20 a month each person, but like coffee is like $8 a pound. So yes, so you understand why they just have little bits there. But anyways, I'm glad you're all joining with us, and thanks for those kind words. No, very, very much. We are really glad that you're joining with us. We're glad everybody's joining with us. And being a part of this as we're going through this series together. Now I'm looking at the time and I'm like, okay, well, we've got to get jumping into this thing because I want you guys to be able to get on to your day. But let's take a moment and let's just pray. So God, I want to thank you that you are with us And regardless of which province we're in, and regardless of where we are, even in our faith, God, that you meet us where we are on the journey. And I'm so glad for that. So God, I just pray that you'd help us. Help us to learn how our lives can model you in the lives of those around us. And so we just ask for your guidance in this discussion and in the day, in the days to come. In your name, amen. Well, I'm glad you're with us, and as always, this is part of a series we're going through. Last summer, we really honed in and came up with our vision statement, which is to be pursuing the person and presence of God in us, through us, and around us. And so really felt in my heart in 2022 to take the whole year and just kind of walk through what that looks like. Taking the first season, so since January till about middle of April, we started looking at this idea of how do we pursue the person and presence of God in us on a personal level, but that it can't just stay there. It has to actually move on. And so that goes through us. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So you can always go back, just kind of scroll back in this feed, and then you can watch the other videos and follow along wherever you want. But we had a first step last week, which I call it the second step, and that was to every hour or whenever you could remember it, to rededicate your life to the Lord by saying, Lord, I give you my life, right? We were talking about, setting example in our speech and in our conduct, in our life. So I wonder how that went for you. It's interesting how few times in the week I did it. I probably shouldn't be as honest as I am, but it is 6:35, and so you're stuck with it. But the idea being that you are doing it, but then to actually physically remember, Lord, I give you my life. Lord, I give you my life. And when I did it, because it didn't happen as often as I had wanted it to, it made every time more meaningful, because it was like, wow, it is this. So I don't know what it was like for you. I'd love having it in your comment section there, just like how that impact perhaps was for you to be able to make that decision to do that. So anyways, let's jump into this third area, because we've been talking about this theme verse for this series is based on a memory verse that I had growing up, like my own life verse. Do not let people look down on you. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers. We talked about that last week. For the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. Right? So that's what we looked. Remember, we're talking about the fact that we want to be an example for the believers, not to the believers, which I had memorized poorly, but for the believers. Because the idea here is that when you are, I think I used it last week, that when you're being an example to the believers, it's like giving them the map to how to get somewhere. But when you're being an example for the believers, then you're actually leaving the trail for them and saying, just follow the trail. And that's what discipleship is. I'm getting out of myself. But that's what discipleship is. It is really making the path easier for the next person. And truthfully, if we've been discipled properly, then we're just treading down the same path that perhaps someone else led for us, right? And so maybe in the comment section, you want to throw in who was your best disciple, who was your best person that modeled, what we're talking about, in speech, life, love, faith, and purity. Who was that person that really pushed down that trail, and you're just kind of following along, and now it's about having others follow with you, right? So we talked about this idea about by setting an example, right? And the idea in this is that be the original mold, be the original cast, like when something is made, you have the original and everything is put in there, and it's just a duplicate of that. And that's the term that's being used here by Paul is that he's saying, be that original mold, okay? Which we know that we ourselves were molded by Christ, right? That you look in Genesis and it says that God formed us. He spoke everything into existence, but he formed us, which I think is so cool. And, sometimes I kind of go, God, not that you could have done a better job, but seriously, could I not have like a six pack and be a little taller, but God still forms us and that's fine. He chooses, well, he chooses, and then we make some choices too. But anyways, we're going to leave that alone. But so always, we looked at the idea of being in your faith, in your speech, which is what you say. And then last week we talked about in your life, and your translation may say in conduct, which is more accurately the word. I just use life because that's the way that I was taught it, or that's the way I memorized it from the NIV, the 1984 version, because they changed it on me, which I'm pretty upset about it because they did not ask my permission, which kind of upset me about that. But I'm just a little more. Siempre café, siempre café. Okay, awesome. Okay, good. All right. So now we hit this wall. Okay, speech, cool. Don't tell bad jokes. In life, okay, don't go to bad places or don't make some bad decisions. Okay, that's fine. In love, slam. Okay, so it's like in your speech, in what you say, in life, in what you do, and now it's in love, in how you care. Remember, this is in the context, it's not just about in you, okay? It's not about God working in you, it's God working through you, okay? So that's why I believe Paul is very clear talking about the fact that we're to set an example in our speech, in our life, and in our love. Okay, so let me circle back to a few chapters to Matthew, chapter 28, which is a very popular passage. Some of you may be able to even recite it, but it is a popular passage in verses 19 and 20. I can't recite it, but so I'm going to read it, and it says this: Go therefore, this is Jesus speaking, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. Siempre. I am with you always to the end of the age. Okay? Here's the thing I want to get at. Verse 20 says this: teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. Now, I want to even pull that a step further. He commanded them, but he also modeled it. Jesus really is the ultimate model, which, I guess that's an interesting sermon. He's a supermodel, okay? I'm going to preach that sometime. But that Jesus is a supermodel. And so here we're looking at this idea that he teaches and he says, teach people and command the commands that I have taught you there, okay? Here's what I want to get at. We take the second part of the verse and we have focused on that almost ad infinitum without really focusing on the first part, okay? So we focus too much on the teaching and not about the trusting to be able to teach. I'm going to say that again. Maybe you want to throw that in the chat room. That we focus too much on the teaching that we don't focus enough on the trusting enough to teach, okay? I'm glad you're listening to me. I'm glad that, we've got people from different provinces joining us and different places. I love that our church community in just building one another up just does not stay right in the whack, right? It's like it goes further than that. And I'm loving that, whether it's on Sunday or during the week, which I love these times, by the way, in the week. I think it's great. But here's what I want to say. Thank you for being here. I love that you're here. But hopefully, I have developed enough trustworthiness to allow for my teach-worthiness. Okay, let me say that. Okay, I know I'm making up words at 6:40 in the morning. But hopefully, I have taught hopefully I have developed enough trustworthiness for me to be able to now have teach worthiness. We teach way better and way more effectively, and we model way more effectively when we have built enough trust with people. Okay, so before even Jesus mentions the idea of teaching, he commands us to make disciples, not to evangelize, not to leave a tract with your meal, which I guess we don't do that anymore, but back in the days, right? So not to like invite someone over to a Billy Graham movie, which just basically is a movie where Billy Graham just shows up randomly at some point. Like, it's just really what happened. But no, that's not what this is about. It's about going out and making mini Craigs, okay? And some of you say, well, you're pretty mini already, like in height and stuff. But no, it's going out making mini Richards, mini Lindas, mini Rosannas, mini Tracys, I feel like I'm Romper Room. If any of you watch Romper Room or something like that when you're a kid or had your kids watch that. But yes, naming these names, that's what God wanted us to do, because I'm supposed to make mini Craigs because I have a mini Christ that worked in me, or I have a mini Bert Lira who I really looked up to in ministry, or Doug Stringer. Like, some of these people that really shaped me as an individual. I have many disciples that I was discipled by many people, yes, but there's a few that were really paramount. So I would hope that when I minister, when I speak, when I whatever, that there's a little Bert in me, that there's some Doug in me here. And that my prayer is that there's Craig in those who I am discipling, right? That's what Jesus told us to do first, okay? We're to recreate ourselves in others, okay? So here we're going. So in speech, what we say. In our conduct, life, in what our conduct are. Now in love, oh my goodness, no. Okay, now, let's just take a breath. Okay, I'm going to just take a sip here. I'm just going to take a sip. Okay, here we are. Okay, so this is what I want to get at. We talked about this back in February. You have to go on our church, the regular Facebook page. But we were in this series called Redeeming Love. And the idea was that we were going to look at the 7 words that were used in that era in the Greek language for love, and then we're going to redeem them. Okay, we're going to show where Christ is our Redeemer. Okay, and so the word here for love is agape. Okay, which you have to, just as a bit of a refresher, just don't jump right to the front and say, oh, that's God's love. No. It wasn't God's love. It was the word that the Greeks used for a certain type of love that Christians then adapted to say, yeah, that love, that's the kind of love that God has for you. So they didn't look at it from a deity perspective, because back in that era, deities kind of just did their own thing. Hercules and Achilles and all these Lees and all those people, they were just kind of like doing their own thing. So they didn't really care about humanity that much. So the idea was that, no, there's a God who actually cares about you as an individual. And so that word for agape, that was the word that they were using. And so it's not God's love, but it's the way that best described God's love here. Here's the catch. Agape love is a selfless, no strings attached love. It is unconditional. There's no conditions attached to it. It is just pure love out of it's an internal love that just kind of explodes out. It's a love for. It's not a love me. It's a love for, right? So here's what I want to say about this. Throw this in the chat room if you want, or take these notes or whatever. The moment that you question if you should love in a situation, it is no longer an action, but a transaction. Okay, I know. Maybe you need to take a little sip again. This is when I, pray, boy, I should have had a bigger cup, but I say that again. The moment that you pause and wonder and think about whether or not you should love in a situation. It is no longer an action, it is a transaction. Because now you are evaluating the risk versus the reward. What am I going to get out of this? This idea, this ROI, this return on your investment. If I'm going to love this, what am I going to get this? So God's love doesn't think it through first. God's love is just, it is just love. Sin is in the world. Jesus, my son, well, Christ at the time, the Son of God is going to, which is, understand the person of God. Maybe we need to talk about that sometime. But the person of God being the Son, you're coming now to redeem my people because I just love them. And we got to do something. We got to do something. Boom. He already knew what he was going to do. Okay. So it wasn't like this big discussion or anything like that. So here, this is what's happening. That's the sort of love that you and I are supposed to model. See? Okay, don't tell a joke, or just kind of help the person across the street, or snitch on your friend who has a landscape company that's burying bodies. Okay, but no, now it's about loving godly, loving, and we're supposed to set that example for the believers on this selfless, no strings attached love. I think I would have been much more happy if Paul had just said, set an example for the believers in speech and life, in faith and in purity. Like that would probably be fine. But he throws in the middle of this, like five, the fingers here, the five fingers, like right in the middle. So slam, he goes like in love, this selfless love. Okay. So here's what I want to get at with this. Do you know what the problem is with agape love, with this selfless love? Okay. Here, I'm going to just pause so you get this. It will always cost you more than what you will get back. Selfless love cannot receive more than what is given. Okay? Now, you can interpret what you receive as being worth it, but selfless love has to be like almost like you have to commit more than what you consume. You need to, that selfless love always has to cost. It always has to hurt in a good way or something like this. That there always has to be this idea here, because here's what I want to say. If it doesn't, if what your love is that's expended is gets something back more than what you poured out, then it wasn't love, it was a trade. It was a transaction. It was a trade. It was an investment. And investments, even we see with Jesus, that the idea is that an investment should be giving you some sort of profit on the other side. I look at my pension, as small as it is, but I look at, I get the pension statement there, and I'm like, well, I didn't invest that much money into the pension, but the pension fund has now made interest in that. So what I'm going to get out of it, okay, believe me, that's a pretty good example of what love is or isn't. I'm not loving my pension idea, but the idea is that what I'm going to get back out of it will be bigger than what I put into it. Love, agape love, you have to flip the table. That's where you're not going to get back as much as you want. Okay, let's look at this here. So in Romans chapter 12, we've done a lot of study on Romans chapter 12 lately, and maybe we need to. Anyways, we'll see about that. But Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 18, but I'm going to skip some verses here, okay? And so this is from the Christian Standard Bible, and I want to read this. Starting in verse 9, it says, let love, agape love, be without hypocrisy. Be that selfless, no strings attached love, Be without hypocrisy. Okay, do you see the context here? Detest evil, cling to what's good, love one another deeply as brothers and sisters. Different love, different love. Phileo love, okay? And so remember, or filial love, phileo love, however you want to say it, but filial love is different, and it doesn't just mean brotherly love, okay? It doesn't mean that, oh, you know what, I have my sister, and so, you know what, we have that filial love. No, 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 no. Filial love is a love that is based on experience. I love Rosanna. I love Sabatino. They like, I shared this earlier to some people. They had asked us if we were homesick, and we're like, no, we're not homesick. We love it out here. You know this. We love it out here. We're people sick. We're people sick. We wish that there were people that could be with us, which, by the way, there's 2 people on a plane right now, and one is 4. And they're coming here. Whoa! Okay, so I'm just letting this out now. So we're really excited about this. So our in-laws left on Tuesday, and we had a great time with them. And so then our granddaughter and daughter are coming. They're on the plane. They gave me proof of life pictures. I was up at 1 this morning, making sure that they were up and going to the airport. But yes, but we're people. So here it's this filial love. But when you have agape love, then you can have proper filial love. Okay, so here don't have hypocrisy. Love one another deeply as brothers and sisters. Oh my goodness, the time. Okay, take the lead in honoring one another. So think about this. When you have that agape love, then you can have proper filial love. It's based on that experience together. Okay, I love, like, I'm looking at like Richard, like we go for breakfast, or we've done some events together, gone out together, like Linda, you know, in prayer. Like every one of you, there's a different love there, and it's growing. It's growing, and that's through experience. That's through spending time together here. But it goes on and says, take the lead in honoring one another. Verse 13 says, share with the saints in their needs, pursue hospitality. I wish I had even time and not talked about other things to talk about, like pursue hospitality. Hospitality is a spiritual gift. Yes, but this is not just to those who are spiritually gifted with hospitality. We are to be hospitable to everybody. That's why I think it's so important, if you come to our church and you want to get involved, become a part of our first impression team, become a host, because then you get to meet everybody. Pursue hospitality. Something happens when you, oh my goodness, like, we can have pasta here, but I know, Rosanna, I feel bad, I'm there, but Nona's pasta, oh my goodness, fresh pasta, like I've had her food, it's just like, right? So there's that hospitality. You can see the love in the cooking. You can see the love in how we entertain. That's what Paul is getting at. We're to set that example in how we express love to one another. And verse 14 says, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse, okay? John, later on the island Patmos, he's writing this stuff, and in chapter 3 of 1 John, he says this: little children, let us not love in word or speech, but in action and in truth. We're supposed to love in truth, okay? Flattery, to me, flattery is sinful praise, okay? So we're supposed to love in truth. We're supposed to love in action, not just in word or speech. Okay, so, whoa. So Craig, you just talked about that like 2 weeks ago. Like we're supposed to set an example in our speech. So like now we're not supposed to do that? No. It doesn't contradict it, because the passage is not about speech. It's about love. He's driving God's love in us down deeper, because here's the thing I want to close on right here as we bring this to a close. You cannot talk agape love. We're supposed to set an example in agape, agapo, okay? We're supposed to set an example in how we love unconditionally without strength. And so godly love cannot just be spoken, okay? You can't talk agape love. Selfless, no strings love is not a commitment, it's conduct. It is conduct. It is expressed through action. Conduct. Set an example in your speech, in your conduct. You see how all these things are weaving together. Friends, this is what I think is so powerful about this passage that we're talking about. This whole idea is that we're trying to mirror God in us and then activate it as purely as possible through us. Now, understand, Hebrews says that the spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. So there's going to be Craig in how I love. There's going to be Craig in how I talk. There's going to be Craig in how I act. Faith, purity. We're going to look at those in the next couple of weeks. But there's going to be Linda in how you love. There's going to be Richard in how you love. That's going to be in us. But God, remember this. He formed us. He created us, each one of us unique, because he wanted that love to be expressed. His love, agape love, to be expressed through us to those around us. It's not just talking about receiving agape love, unconditional love. No, it's being the conduit now of agape love and allowing him to let his love for us become our love for others. So as I bring this to a close, I always love doing a first step, even if it's kind of hard for us to remember and stuff throughout the week, like last week. And keep doing those. Keep, Lord, I give you my life. I'm not just saying do it for a one-time thing. I'm saying let's try and develop these patterns. Let's try and look at this and say, okay, every day, what did I say? Did I cross the line? Every day, every hour, Lord, I give you my life. Just that recommitment. It's not something to just do on Sunday morning when the worship team comes up after I preach. Here, what's the first step? My first step idea here is to do this. There's those bands that would say, like, what would Jesus do? Like that you'd have that band on you and you just kind of go, what would Jesus do? No, okay. So what I'm talking about is what would love do in this situation? Remember, God is love. So what would selfless, unattached, no strings attached love look like in this situation? That's my prayer for you. That's my prayer for me. That's my goal that I'm going to look at as I go through this week. This weekend, I was up at 4 or something yesterday, just preparing for Sunday's message, and I went and talked to Carrie about it, and I was like tearing up. I can't tell you how much I pray that you are with us on Sunday morning, online if you have to, in person if you can. This whole series, God's coolest questions Jesus ever asked, hinges on this question. This question was the catalyst for me to say, well, are there other questions? And they came up with the whole series. So I want to tell you, I've been sitting on this for months, and I can't wait to share this message on Sunday morning. I'd love for you to join us wherever you can. But thanks for joining us here. Love it, whether you're watching this later as well. That just, again, throw your name in the comment section. We love to have this whole community going on. My prayer today is that the selfless love that God has given us, let's not hoard it. Let's share it with those around us. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Go in peace. Bye.